So Amber filed some motions recently, and people have been discussing it for a while. It's the big scandal is that there might be a case of jury fraud. We don't know the exact details of what's going on, but what had happened was there was an older man who's like in his 70s. He was supposed to be in the jury, but he lives with his son, and his son got the summons and took it. And I'm so confused by this, because I think something like that, if it happened in the UK, I think this is something that would be an automatic mistrial, because you can't have the wrong person be in the jury. And when they were explaining it, when I've read about this, is it true that you don't have to like write down your birthday and show proper identification when you do jury duty? I've never done that, but that's weird. How can that make sense? And I think in the US there've been a bunch of mix-ups like this happening, but I think it's really bizarre, and they should like work on that for the future. And the judge ended up saying like it doesn't matter. I don't know. Would it really not matter? They make it seem like she's making it seem like this was an honest mistake by the juror. And we don't really know if that's true, because if they have different names and when they get the summons in the post, doesn't it say what name it's supposed to be? I don't know, it just doesn't sound right to me. And if this person really wanted to be on this case and like just said whatever they needed to say to do and did whatever they needed to do to make it work, then that's what they were going to do. I think in either way they would have done that. That's what it's reading like to me, because why would you choose to do jury duty if you don't need to do it? And I'm sure that he would have known that he didn't need to do it. If they have different names, he would have known that he didn't need to do it. So that's something to think about. And there's been talk about this particular person kind of being biased towards Johnny Depp, perhaps. They said that there's been notes about him like being really into what everything Johnny Depp was saying, and people were saying like maybe he would have made sure that Johnny Depp would win at all costs, or that Amber would lose at all costs. And that could make sense of the inconsistent decision. Like maybe that was part of like dealing with this particular person. It's a compromise, but it's a compromise that makes the whole thing not make any sense. And just in general, the way they made the decision, they decided that Johnny Depp was going to win, but they didn't write down the damages, and they went out for a little bit and wrote down some weird number. Like, it's very careless, very thoughtless. It wasn't very well done. It's like they just don't care. They just wanted to get out of this thing as quickly as possible. That's what it's reading like to me. And I think it's funny, like the way that there was one of the jurors gave an interview talking about this thing, and they said that they spent a lot of time talking about the charity thing, the pledge donation difference, and being like, and saying that Amber's such a liar because of the whole pledge donation thing. And I just think it's really funny if this person was a fraudulent jury member, like, and they're throwing like stones at a glass house, like just being like, oh, she's such a liar, and then you think, okay, but when's your birthday? Like, how old are you? What's your name, sir? Like, it's just kind of funny when you think about it. But like, I just like imagine this person just being like, oh, but she's such a liar. What about the children? Sick children. Like, just always about the children.
Why do you care?
Because I'm a caring person. See?
So I'm not sure if it is the same person, but one of the jury members spoke to Good Morning America, I think, and they said that they believed that the relationship was sort of mutually abusive. But if that's the case, then Amber should have won. But never mind. But they also said that they tended to believe that Amber was the primary aggressor, and that's why they chose to award him more damages or something. I don't know, it's weird. They don't understand the instructions, I don't think. It just doesn't seem like you understand the instructions if that's how you chose to do what you did. Anyway, and I just want to look into that idea of Amber being the primary aggressor, and look into Johnny Depp's exes and some of the reasons why they're not saying anything right now, because I don't think Amber was the only one.
This is not a Me Too situation. There are no Me Toos. Just not me's.
What the hell did you just say? Couch. Couch. Couch! You give me one couch. I gave you 3 other couches. 2 couches. Give me one, please.
You don't pay attention to it.
Please, give me a couch.
What do you want?
Couch.
Couch, right. What do you want?
I want couch.
We don't have to speak now.
I want couch.
Couch.
Agree, please, though. You said you agreed
Couch,
before
agreed.
we started talking. I want to stop fighting.
Have I been fighting?
Yes. Everything you've said has been nasty and provoking and mean-spirited.
Not yours.
No, I'm not saying that. You asked me yours. By the way, you just threw a fucking cigarette on me.
Mr. Depp, do you recognize what's in that recording?
Do I recognize what's in the recording?
Yes.
Seems pretty clear that she's ordering me to the couch. And I didn't want to go through with any, again, avoiding confrontation, trying to avoid confrontation in any way.
I'm starting to think that Johnny Depp is the one that has histrionic personality disorder, like just based on the fact that he chooses to lie for no reason whatsoever, especially when it comes to this couch thing. When I heard this conversation, it doesn't make any sense to me. When I hear his definition, like when they first started saying couch, and all these weird things, I thought it was a thing to begin with. I was like, maybe she's talking about like cigarettes, a pill, maybe it's like a street name for a drug that I don't know, maybe something like that. And then when he gives his explanation for what it was of, he says it's pretty clear that she's ordering me to the couch. I was thinking, like, it threw me way off. I went back through the whole conversation. I was like, no, that doesn't make any sense whatsoever. And it started to, like, he kept saying so many things that didn't make any sense to me at all when I looked back at the conversation. It was like, that doesn't really fit. And I don't know why he chose to lie, because Amber gave her explanation of it, where she's saying that couch basically is like a truce word. It means like, let's couch it. That makes a lot more sense when you look at the conversation. I think it is what it's supposed to mean. And he could have said that because she was only accusing him of verbal abuse, stuff like that. So it's not a bad thing to just admit that that's what the word couch means. But he chose to lie for no reason. It's very bizarre, and that's he keeps doing that. And then at the end of the conversation, Amber says that he threw a cigarette at her. So that could be, you know, them fighting is sort of progressing into a physical thing, a slight physical assault, perhaps. And then he kind of, again, to explain that away, he kind of over-exaggerates Amber's claim and saying that Amber said that he put out a cigarette on her, when that's not what she said. She said that he just threw an actual cigarette at her. He minimized it to say maybe some ash flicked on her, and then saying that Amber was saying that he put out a cigarette on her. And it's an in-between between those two things. That's the reality of what she said happened, was that he just threw the entire cigarette, not just like little ashes, and not stomping one out on her. And it's just throwing one. And it could be an accidental physical thing, physical assault type thing. So she's not blaming him too much. So again, he doesn't need to minimize it, make it, he's trying to make her out to be that, like, she's over dramatic when she's not. And he keeps doing that. So I don't side with him on this. And it's like that rule that if you lie about one thing, you could be lying about everything. And I think this is one of those times where it applies to him. Like, I do think he lied about this, because he's saying to her, when she kept saying couch, he said, you need to pay attention to it. And she's saying to him, you gave me 1, I gave you 2, 3. It's definitely not her ordering him to the couch. So if he lied about this one thing, he could have been lying about everything he said. So this is something very important, I think, to focus on.
I tried to get you to calm down so many times in Toronto.
Oh, Toronto.
Toronto, in Venice, in San Francisco. I would come to the 7 different bathrooms if you were.
Just stop it, stop it. I feel sick with confusion.
So I've mentioned this before, this whole 5 bathrooms, 2 bedrooms thing really confusing me, because I remembered something on the tapes where they said it was about Toronto, and then suddenly in this trial it's about Australia. And there are times on the tapes where Johnny mentions it being about Australia, but then there are other times where he's saying that he only remembers 1 or 2 fights, and the rest of it where he was cool-headed, and the rest of it he just doesn't know anything. So it was really confusing to me, like, and when Camille was asking Amber about this, she was saying to her, you are the real aggressor because you were chasing him like 7 times, more than 7 times, and she must have been the real aggressor and stuff like that. And Amber was trying to answer the question, and she said, no, that's not true. He has a bad memory of that. I only knocked on the door once. She said something like that, but then Camille cut her off, and we didn't get her full answer in the trial. But I did some digging on this, and I'm pretty sure that the 5 bathrooms, 2 bedrooms thing, it actually isn't, that's not what happened in Australia. And in Amber's version of events, she's saying that she was the one who had to lock herself away from him. And then when you take in all the evidence of what happened, like, if he couldn't have been locked up for long. Like, he might have, like, locked himself in the bathroom, like, a few times. But the evidence will show you that he was not locked up for long, because you could see the bloody writing on everything in the house. Like, he went everywhere. He wasn't in the bathroom the entire time. So common sense would tell you that Amber, of all places, couldn't have been the aggressor when she was in Australia. And I think that's what they were trying to do, is like conflate different incidents and confuse the public into thinking it's something that it's not. Because it doesn't make sense. For when you listen to the tapes, they always have made it out like Amber was the bigger victim in that. And Johnny Depp never explained what he did to Amber. Like, when they were speaking on the tapes, she was saying to him that he almost killed her. And he didn't explain what that would mean. And when they bring up the whole finger incident, like, Amber never has taken responsibility for that. She keeps saying that it's not my problem that you lost your own finger. So it doesn't really make sense for Amber to have been the key aggressor in that. And the whole thing with, like, conflating incidents, I've noticed that they might have been doing it for a bunch of things, like the plane fight that they were talking about, where he, in his version of events, he's saying that Amber was the aggressor. And there is something on the tapes where they mentioned that Amber was the more aggressive one on a flight, but it was a real flight, not the one to Boston. And the Boston flight is where he allegedly kicked her in the back. And I think they have mixed those two things up, perhaps. And the lawyers have knowingly done it. They must have knowingly done this, and I don't like that at all. And with the Rio fight, he specifically said that Amber was the one that got crazy, and he had to come to her to calm her down. that she was losing her marbles. They were not specific about that. They haven't spoken about Toronto or Rio at all in this trial. And if those are the times where Amber's being the more aggressive one, why are they not telling you the actual stories of what happened? Like, it should be very important, like, to give you those specific stories. And there's a bunch of other incidents that we've not heard about, like different areas, Venice, all these places where they're not explaining what the fight is. And maybe those are the times where Amber's being more aggressive. But then when I'm listening to what he says about it, he's just accusing her of berating him, insulting him. He's not saying it escalates to a physical level. So that might be one of the reasons why they don't bring it up. The other reason why they might not be bringing it up, like, maybe it does progress to physical, but they're not bringing it up because, this whole trial, whether or not Amber abused him is actually immaterial to the case at hand. So there's no reason to bring that stuff up. And I wonder if they are kind of being sneaky, trying to do it like this. And they have done this before in the UK with the Tokyo incident. Amber has that story of him assaulting her, and there's like he knelt on her back and something like that. And he's saying that could not have happened because his kids were with him on that trip. And when you look into it, that's not true, because Amber's incident was Tokyo 2015. The kids were with them Tokyo 2013. So he mixed up those two incidents and acted like it was the same thing. And it's not right to do that. And it's a complete disregard. It's a reckless disregard for the truth when they do what they're doing. And I don't care for this. Like, it's just reading like it's classic DARVO. They're not interested in putting forth actual stories of her alleged abuse to him. They only want to deny and attempt to discredit her stories using dishonest, skeezy tactics that I loathe. So I don't care for Johnny Depp's lawyers doing what they do.
This is what would happen when Mr. Depp would try to take some space from you, right?
No, this is what would happen when Johnny had moved into the next phase of the cycle, decided to use, and our lives were getting a lot worse at that point.
Ms. Heard, I'm talking about your actions. This is what you would do to Mr. Depp when he would leave you. You would harangue him.
I would try to...
Isn't that correct? You would harangue him.
Your Honor, at least let her answer the question. Interrupting her.
That's fine. Go ahead and answer the question.
I do not think I would characterize my behavior that way. I was trying to stop him from using.
You were texting him incessantly. Isn't that correct, Ms. Heard?
It was imperative for my life.
Ms. Heard,
it was very important.
my question is
to me.
much more simple. You were texting him incessantly.
I would
yes or no?
Everything to
Ms.
get a hold of him and
so
to stop
yes.
the cycle.
That's a yes, right?
I would try everything to stop the cycle. It was that important to me.
And he's the monster for not responding to you.
That's not what made him the monster.
For needing space from you.
The monster was not the guy who needed space. The monster was who he was when he came back.
Not for doing drugs, Ms. Heard. Not for being violent. Just for needing space. That's when you called Mr. Depp the monster.
Incorrect.
Objection. Badgering the witness. What the hell was that? I did not care for that at all. This is the moment where Camille started to look really incompetent to me. And I think well done to Adam Waldman for doing everything that he did, because that's the thing that really won this case. I think, like, all the propaganda and the bots and all that did all the heavy lifting. So when she got on the stand, she barely had to do anything. None of that makes any sense. Like, why do people think that Camille Vasquez did a good job? That's not the way you interrogate a witness and talk over them, and just acting completely unprofessional. It was just very clear, like, that all she had to do was restrict as much information as possible, and that's what she was doing the entire time. And then when you go into, like, what she's criticizing her for, like, these texts, I don't understand what her point is with this, like, saying that you texted him incessantly. is that suddenly a crime? Like, I don't get what's her point? What's she trying to say with that? And then you take in the context that he's an addict, so it's not even strange behavior. And Amber has mentioned this before, where Johnny Depp would say to her, I need a day, to himself, and then he would disappear for like a week, and she had no ability to contact him the entire time. And that's very stressful for someone. So I don't understand why they make it seem like it's so weird and that she won't let him leave and da-da-da-da. And he does the same thing to Amber Heard as well. Like, Johnny Depp gets upset with her when she tries to leave him. Like, after the plane incident, there's these text exchanges between them, and he's saying to her, like, I'm in a place of shame and regret, and I'm sorry that my illness crept up on me. I'm so sorry for letting you down. And then she doesn't respond, and then he texts her again saying, I see that understanding and forgiveness ain't on the menu. I'm disappointed to see that, but not surprised, I suppose. And then he texts again saying, I hear sadly through others that you will be flying back to New York City tonight. Unfair for you to run away. But perhaps you're right. Again, I'm sorry, but I don't deserve this. It's an ugly decision. This is my last text. I love you so much. Be well, JD. So look who's shaming who for running away. It's him. He's done the exact same thing that Amber says to him. He doesn't like it when she leaves him either. So why is Amber the only one getting criticized for this kind of thing? Like, he also doesn't like it when she leaves, and he tries to shame her for trying to go. And this is after the alleged assault on the plane, where he kicked her apparently. And after that, there's text exchanges between Amber and Stephen Duters where they talk about it. And he's saying that that message where he said, I don't deserve this. Amber's like, I don't like that he said that he doesn't deserve this. And Stephen, like, tries to say, oh, he's just a lost little boy, like, take him back, da-da-da-da. Even if you think about the Australia recording where you hear him screaming at her, so I guess you're leaving on Monday. Like, he's upset that she's leaving him. I think that's what's actually happening, that he's upset that Amber wanted to leave after the thing. So it's always him that seems to have a problem with her leaving. And then whenever she's trying to get a hold of him and all this stuff, that she's being portrayed to be a very clingy person. But then it's completely ludicrous, because when you take in that context of him being an addict and the things that he said about Amber, saying there's no luckier man on this earth to have the strength that Amber gives me. Your daughter has risen far above the nightmarish task of taking care of this poor old junkie. Suffice to say, I have never loved a woman or a thing more. She has the strength of 1,000 men, and that is due to no one or nothing but you, sweetheart. And he signed off the text saying, your son outlaw. He sent this to her mother, just praising her for taking care of him when he was in that kind of state. So Amber's explanation seems to make a lot of sense. I don't know what point Camille was trying to make by saying all that. And what I also found was interesting was Elon Musk, after Johnny broke up with Amber, Musk offered to arrange 24/7 security for her because she had been telling him about some of the things that happened. I think also because she's alleging that Johnny Depp kind of gave her some coded death threats and things like that. And maybe that's why she was quite scared to leave him and wanted that restraining order. And Elon Musk said, the offer would stand even if you never wanted to see me again. Anyway, sorry for being an idiot. The radio silence hurts a lot. It only matters because I really like you. And that's something that I think is really important, where he said that the radio silence hurts a lot. And that's the thing that Amber, the immense amount of stress that she goes through whenever he completely cuts her off. No contact, that silent treatment is very scary. And when I think about the death threat, these alleged death threats, and we do know that there are text messages that Johnny Depp has written where he is fantasizing about murdering her, hoping that her corpse is in the trunk of a Honda Civic. There are rumors about Johnny Depp, about him possibly offing some people. Like, if you can, have you this rumor about someone named Anthony Fox, who was his partner, and he was going to sue Johnny Depp for fraud, and then he went missing, and he still hasn't been found to this day. And Johnny Depp, there's been a floating rumor about him possibly having to do with his disappearance. And then Johnny Depp did this interview with Rolling Stone where he mentioned this other rumor that I don't think a lot of people knew about, which was what happened to River Phoenix, because he was in the Viper Room, which was his club at the time, and he suffered this overdose at the club. And there's this quote where he said he suffered through the death of his friend River Phoenix from an overdose at the club. Amid wild claims in the supermarket rags that he delivered the fatal dose to Phoenix himself. Imagine living with that, says Depp, his eyes clouding over. So what's interesting about that is the article says that Johnny and River were friends, and that's not true. They weren't actually friends. They just had a lot of mutual acquaintances in common, but they didn't really know each other that well. And the reason why people maybe had been talking about him having something to do with delivering the overdose was because Winona and Johnny had dated for 4 years, and they had broken up at that point. And then Winona was supposed to be in a film with River, and that's when he got the overdose. And so people think that he might have done it out of jealousy or something like that. So it just makes you wonder, and he brought this stuff up in that interview, and that's why they said it was a disastrous interview. And that might have been the Rolling Stone interview and the GQ interview were the things that really ruined his reputation when you read the stuff that he decided to put out there. And then going back into this thing where them trying to make Amber out to be a weirdo for doing what she does, and how River Phoenix died, and he wasn't known for doing a lot of drugs, and his girlfriend was with him at the time, Samantha Mathis. She spoke about this, and she said that it was so unexpected, and she was with him at the time, and she didn't see him high like that ever before, and she has suspicions as to what happened, but she says that she didn't see anything. And when Camille's saying he just left and he was sober, the drugs would never be the thing that would kill him, or I don't know what her point is. If he's an addict, then there's always gonna be, you always fear when they disappear on you. And there's times where Johnny Depp is talking about what happened, about the way Amber was looking after him, saying, "I couldn't have made it without her. I would have gone for a swim and swallowed a big drink of ocean without her, to be honest. It was a hell of my own doing that your little girl walked through with me step by step. I know you're already proud of her, but if you'd seen her in action, amazing. It was an exercise of monumental patience and instinct. I wouldn't be alive, sweetheart. There were more than a few times when I thought it would be more simple to take that route. It was Amber and Amber only that got me through this, and it was not easy." So it seems like Amber, texting him incessantly and trying to keep an eye on him, that's helpful in keeping him alive. And I don't know what are they trying to say? This is his wife. She's having a normal response to her addict husband disappearing for no reason. I'm really, really sorry that Amber Heard has a heart and cares about the well-being of her husband. Right, so what does the word jump mean to Johnny and Amber?
For a long time, I was able to keep everything together, and when we fought,
Do you remember?
be cool. Yeah, exactly. And it was for a while, right?
Yeah, it was.
So
we could have arguments. It was okay, normal. No,
right.
we can't have an argument. No,
Right, but there was one or two in Australia when I was calm-headed and all that shit. What am I reacting to? If I'm trying to keep a cool head, I'm reacting to you fucking jumping.
No, before a jump, just a normal argument. Maybe there's a difference. There is in middle ground. Sometimes
but
you just go, that was rude, or you snap.
You tend to jump. You tend to jump.
Okay, all right. This is before the jump.
I think that there may be some sort of communication breakdown happening between Johnny and Amber when it comes to this, because when Amber's talking about what the word jump means, she makes it seem like they're definitely talking about something physical. And then with Johnny, I think he is referring to verbal abuse, like a criticism or yelling is a jump. And there are other tapes of him where he talks about her criticizing him as her attacking him. And he's saying that, again, this is with the fights in Australia, he's saying he remembers one or two, and the rest of it, he's not sure about what happened. And so that again makes me think that the 5 bathrooms, 2 bedrooms wasn't exactly what happened in Australia, because if he can only remember 2 fights where he's cool-headed, what's happening for the other 5+ fights where he's not cool-headed? So that seemed very confusing to me. And then when I look at this text message in December 2014, and this is the time when Amber says that this is when she started to fight back for the first time. She had been reporting the abuse since 2011, 2012-ish. She'd been reporting it to her shrink, and she said that this was the time when she started to fight back. And in this text messages, he says that he let it go, went too far. I tend to do that. I always regret it when I jump, or worse, when you jump. So that makes it seem like it's a physical fight when he's saying that, or because that's the time when Amber is admitting to physically fighting back. So that's what I thought it referred to. And I think that this is very interesting because this is quite common with abusive men to act like they are the victim. When, like, O.J. Simpson in his suicide note claimed to be a battered husband. So you see stuff like this where the abuser will over-exaggerate their claims and say that the partner has a lot more verbal power. Like there's some people, I have some quotes here where it says, "Sure, I can win a physical fight, but she is much better with her mouth than I am, so I'd say it balances out." And there was this other man who says in a therapy session, "She stabs me through the heart with her words." And this was to justify the fact that he stabbed his partner in the chest with a knife. So sometimes they get treated to be the same thing, like verbal abuse to an abusive person. They say it's just as bad as physical violence. And I keep seeing Johnny Depp accusing Amber of insulting him, berating him, but there's not a lot of complaints of her physically attacking him as much. Like whenever he's talking about the major fights that they have, it's just her berating him. And I keep seeing times where he's exaggerating things. And I think there is this misconception happening that Amber was the physical aggressor. And it doesn't track with what they both said because he's taking more responsibility. Since 2014, he's saying that it's mostly him that tends to jump. I tend to do that. So it's either the both of them or it's just him is basically what he's saying in that point. So, and the other way you could interpret it is like maybe a jump or starting a physical fight. That could be very ambiguous, like being violent. Sometimes they say that they're violent, but that could refer to like breaking things or smashing things in frustration, not necessarily him hitting her or her hitting him. So when he says that she starts a physical fight, I don't necessarily imagine it to be her like physically hitting him, because he's not always saying that. Sometimes they talk about them throwing things in each other's direction. They both seem to be doing that. Amber sent text messages to her mother talking about him raging in general, and like assaulting inanimate objects. And she said that she threw pots and pans, not necessarily at him, because he doesn't say that it hit him. So that's what it's sounding like to me. And it doesn't, those things are classically considered to be domestic abuse in some ways. He talks about his mother doing the same thing, like throwing things like that, and the effects of it, the psychological effects of it, that they, at their home, they felt shell-shocked, they didn't know what to expect. And that's what Amber's describing, her living with him doing. Like, she feels like she's walking on eggshells, and he says the same thing about her too. So that's the thing that they seem to both be doing to each other. So that's where the mutual abuse could come in. And then maybe it does progress to actual, like, physically hitting each other, because the security guard talks about having to pull Johnny Depp away from Amber in the staircase incident. I'm not sure exactly what was going on there. And then again with the Australia fight, the evidence of his abuse to her, like the way he was terrorizing her with bloody messages, intimidating her, breaking all the things, all that stuff is abusive behavior. And so even if it is mutual abuse where she's like doing some things as well, it won't change the facts of what he did, and that he has a pattern with this kind of behavior. Johnny Depp was the one with the actual addiction problems in this relationship, and I don't think people are really trying to empathize with Amber Heard's situation in dealing with it. His delusional thought process, his paranoia, people don't understand what that's like to be around. And he's someone who was also trying to get her to take pills, and he was convincing her to take this medication from his private medical staff, and accusing her of having mental disorders and things like that. And Amber Heard has never had a problem before she met him. There was nothing ever like that where she was losing her cool and randomly attacking people. That was never a thing with her. Whereas he was the one who has this long arrest history record for doing that kind of thing for a long time. And then again with like his descriptions of events, his overdramatic, hysterical descriptions of events, the way he kept saying to people, "I lost a finger, man." Like, look at the picture, like it's right there. He didn't lose a finger. I can see it. How did he lose his whole finger? He kept saying that he lost a finger multiple times, and that's not true. He lost a fingertip, and then they reattached it. So he's fine. He's completely fine. And it makes no sense for him to like keep whining about it constantly. And with all this talk of Amber needing to have more severe bruising, how is he allowed to get away with this? He keeps saying that he lost his whole finger, and it's right there this entire time. So I don't like that these double standards are happening, where he can say all these wild, ridiculous things that aren't in line with reality, and no one's like calling him out on it. And yet everyone's demanding for Amber to have more severe looking bruises. It's not fair. When we don't know what it's like to be in that type of situation, like, why do people always comment and say what they would do? They're not the same as Amber Heard. They don't know what she would do in that situation. And his up and down, Mr. Jekyll, Dr. Hyde, whatever, his personality, his ups and downs, like, it's impossible to keep track of. The way he acts, like, you can even see it. The evidence shows you that. The things that he's done, it shows you that. And so saying to her, like, if she was really afraid, like, what would she do if she was really afraid? And, like, saying, if it were me, I would never emasculate him. I would never mock him. I would never hit him. And it's just like, well, okay, well, that's just you. That's just you. Like, saying, why would she provoke these fights? Provoke it. He keeps saying that to her as well, like, in that jump thing. He's like, she's telling her that she must have jumped first and that she was provoking him with her words. That's what he keeps saying. Like, that there's that recording where he says that the reason why he runs away and locks himself away during a verbal argument is to prevent himself from popping his wife. So he does seem to be blaming her for starting the physical fight with verbal abuse. And that's what he said in the finger incident when he was texting his doctor. He said that she was just insulting him, berating him. He never accused her of physically assaulting him. Even in the, like, with her hands, I mean. He's never accused her of doing that in those text messages. And it seems like that's what he's trying to say is something that would provoke him. And what we need to understand is, like, he is that irrational. There's no way to know what's going to be the thing to set him off. There's no magical thing that she would know that would set him off. That's what she's trying to understand. That's what she keeps asking him to tell her, like, what is the thing that sets you off? She's asking him, is it the Adderall? Is it work stress? What's happening with you? Why are you so up and down? What's the thing that's making you act like this? What's the thing that's making you get all angry and for your rage to be like this? And she's saying to him he has the rage issues and that's the reason why he needs to be locked away. And he has been going to therapy to deal with his rage issues. So nothing she could have ever done, like, even if she mocked him, even if she hit him, there's no way of predicting what's going to be the thing that would cause him to act in that way. And that's always the case with abusive people. You can't predict what's going to be the thing with them. She's just describing him as a drunk man who was able to physically overpower her. She didn't say that he beat her up in a painful way. Most of the time, that's not what she's saying. And, like, that there's no good reason to, like, deny what she said, because I can't poke holes in her stories at all. So I think there's just needs to be more understanding with this type of thing moving forward. And without further ado, let's talk about the Me Too's with this guy. So in this specific trial, there was a Me Too that was brought in, and that was Ellen Barkin. And she described Johnny Depp as a paranoid, irrational, jealous man. She said that he was verbally abusive and that he would yell. So that wasn't specific to Amber. That's something that I was really interested in knowing, is if he ever spoke that way to his other exes, because there are exes who defend him a lot more. So I wanted to know if there was anyone else who he spoke to in that way. And Ellen specified their relationship to be more of a friends with benefits situation. Like, she's saying it wasn't that serious. She's not saying that she was his proper girlfriend or anything like that. So I think that could have been one of the reasons why he felt more comfortable to be verbally abusive. And the other thing to keep in mind with Amber is that she started off being like a side woman to him, because he was with Vanessa at the time, and Amber was an actress that worked on his film, so she was kind of a lower ranking. So maybe that was one of the reasons why he felt comfortable to speak that way to her. I'm just speculating, but it's interesting because I find it hard to believe that all his other exes would say such nice things if that's the way he spoke to them. And then Ellen also mentioned this thing where there was this argument of some sort. She couldn't remember the exact details of it, with him and his assistants, and she said that he threw a wine bottle near her head. So I think she couldn't remember exactly why he was mad. So she's saying that it's completely irrational. And when this specific incident got brought up in the UK trial, he made it out like, he said he denied the whole thing, and he said that maybe Ellen made it up because she was a bitter ex that was upset that she left him. And I think that's one of the reasons why she wanted to specify that they were not that serious. It was just like a casual friends with benefits thing. Like, she didn't see a future with him or anything like that. So she's not that upset that she's not obsessed with him or anything like that. So that's an interesting thing that backs up what Amber's saying. The same things seem to be carrying on throughout all these years, it seems. Johnny's ex-fiancée, Jennifer Grey, commented on this trial. She said that she hadn't been properly watching it, but from the bits and pieces that she's seen, like from the clips that she's come across, she said, "I don't recognize this person. It's nothing to do with anything that I've ever experienced, and it makes me sad." I find it so weird that she said that it's nothing like she ever experienced, because when I did some digging onto the relationship, she wrote a book and she mentioned him and some of the things that went down. And it does seem to match what Amber's saying about him. She says when they first started going out, that Johnny Depp was like, he's the most beautiful person that she's come across. She's saying that it's almost inhuman. You see a lot of exes of his, like, speaking of him, like, really highly. It's kind of over dramatic in the way I see it, but she's saying, she had this journal entry where she says, "I'm in love, pretty sure for the first time in my life. He's kind, funny, smart, moral, thoughtful, respectful." That's exactly the way Amber described him. And then she goes on to say, like, they had this long distance relationship, because they're both actors and they had to travel back and forth to see each other. And she said that he kept getting into trouble, like fights in bars, skirmishes with the cops. And she said that when they were supposed to meet each other, he started missing flights home, saying that he'd overslept, and when he did come home, he'd be crazy jealous and paranoid about what I'd been up to while he was gone. And she was wondering, like, why he was acting that way, and she said that she attributed his ill temper and unhappiness to him feeling miserable and powerless to get off of 21 Jump Street. So this is what Amber was wondering about, like, why does he have this weird temper problem? And she's wondering, like, is it work stress? Is it da-da-da-da? And it's the same thing, like, she's just trying to guess what it is. And they make it seem like he's so irrational, like they don't know what it is the thing that makes him act this way. And again, you see the same behaviors of jealousy, paranoia, that's been consistent. And because they have this long distance relationship, you might wonder, is it like the difference between what's happening is that he's taking drugs while they're apart, and Jennifer Grey, is just unaware of it because he doesn't tell her what he's been doing. Because I think Johnny Depp's drug issues have been around for that long, but if she doesn't know, she might not know that was what was happening. And the thing about him oversleeping, missing flights, in this trial they brought up the fact that he was always late, that he would oversleep and miss work. He's gotten sick and had to miss a few days, and this is all related to the drug use. But yeah, I don't know why she's saying that it's such a different experience from what she was used to. And they ended up breaking up. She said that she broke up with Johnny using a note that she left in his hotel room after he left for a meeting one day and didn't come back or contact her. And their engagement only lasted 9 months. That's really weird to me, that she was his fiancée and she broke up with him with a note. I don't understand that. There's so many questions, like, and it's the same thing that Amber's accusing him of, like the splitting behavior. It seems very consistent, and I see it with all his exes that's always been a thing. And maybe it's kind of modeled because they are a long distance relationship, so it can be seen as normal, but then there are times where it's like he completely disappears and gives no explanation. When Amber first came forward with these abuse allegations, and I had just heard about it without seeing any pictures or anything. I thought it was instantly believable. And then Winona Ryder went out of her way to say that Johnny Depp was never violent with her. And I think that, for me, made me doubt Amber's story a little bit. Not completely. I just thought it was strange that he had a few exes that came forward and said that that he was never violent or abusive to them. So I think she really affected people's opinion when she said what she said, and she had made a few statements when he did the UK trial, but she blocked it from being used. And some of the statements that I found was that she said, "I understand that it is very important that I speak from my own experience, as I obviously was not there during his marriage to Amber. But from my experience, which was so wildly different," it's always funny to me whenever they say it's so wildly different. Anyway, but she goes on to say, "I was absolutely shocked, confused, and upset when I heard the accusations against him." I don't know. I just find it very confusing, like, that she's saying that it's so unbelievable. Like, based on what I've read about their relationship now, I find it hard to believe that she's saying that it's that unbelievable. She went on to say that the idea that he is an incredibly violent person is the farthest thing from the Johnny I knew and loved. I cannot wrap my head around these accusations. He was never violent towards me. He was never abusive at all towards me. He has never been violent or abusive towards anybody I have seen. So Jennifer Grey tells a different story. She said that she had seen him be violent to other people. And Winona Ryder went on to say that, "I truly and honestly only know him as a really good man, an incredibly loving, extremely caring guy who was so very protective of me and the people that he loves. And I felt so very, very safe with him." When she says protective, I'm interested to know what she meant by the word protective, because that's going to come up with some other people. Anyway, she says, "I do not want to call anyone a liar, but from my experience of Johnny, it is impossible to believe that such horrific allegations are true. I find it extremely upsetting knowing him as I do." Yeah, so that's a very powerful statement to, make him look really good to people. But to go on to explaining what their relationship was and some of the patterns that seem to be consistent with Amber, she said that they got engaged really quickly, like 5 months after the first date. He proposed to her. She was 17 at the time, so her dad said no, because she was so young, but they kept dating, and they dated for 4 years. And she also said that he got a tattoo on his right arm that said "Winona Forever." So that's very interesting. Like, this seems to be the exact same thing as Amber saying, like, and Jennifer Grey, like, it's a very quick proposal, and he got a tattoo for Winona Ryder, and he also got a tattoo in honor of Amber Heard on his fingers. He had Slim written. I don't know if he has a tattoo for Vanessa, but he has them for his kids, and maybe some other people, I don't know. And she's saying that. And then with Johnny Depp, when he spoke about their relationship a long time ago, he said, "There's been nothing in my 27 years that's comparable to the feeling I have with Winona." He said a very similar thing about Amber, like saying that she was like the greatest love ever. He's kind of dramatic when it comes to these relationships, I've been finding. He also says, "I'd die for her. I love her so much. I don't know what I would do without her. If she, I don't know what I would do. I'd kill myself. I love that girl. I love her. I love her almost more than I love myself." And that was a quote in 89. But that's a crazy quote that he said that. I love her almost more than I love myself. Interesting. So he loves himself quite a bit, it seems. But yeah, this is all very interesting. It seems to match up with the way Amber's talking about him, these hyperbolic kind of statements of these grand love things. He's also given like extravagant presents to Amber and to Winona Ryder. Like he said, he had the story about sending her like 100 helium balloons or something as a romantic gesture, all kinds of things. Like he seems to like completely have swept her off her feet. And this is consistent. There is a pattern in that sense so far. After Winona split from Johnny, she spoke about the relationship and described it as her real-life girl-interrupted moment. And based on all her statements, like, I don't know why she mischaracterized what her relationship was. Like, Winona, you said that this was a nice, healthy, normal relationship. And it just isn't. Like, when you look into it, it is not a normal, healthy relationship. They met when she was 17 and he was 26. And this was her first relationship. She said that he was her first everything. So she was extremely naive. She said in another interview that her first boyfriend used to smash everything. And he was her first boyfriend. And yet, in her statements, she's telling you that she felt very, very safe with him. That's crazy. If her first boyfriend smashed everything, how on earth can you be safe with that? And, you know, maybe for her, she does feel safe around that type of thing because it is the first thing that she's been used to. So she might have normalized that kind of behavior. But Amber is different. She's a different person. She describes the exact same thing, but she says that she didn't feel safe around him, and I think that's completely fair for Amber to say that she did not feel safe around that type of behavior. There's a difference between these two people. For one person, they might characterize something as abusive, and another person might not think it's abusive. You don't know what is going to hurt someone unless you communicate, so that's fine. And Winona Ryder also never mentioned the splitting thing, and said anything like that stressed her out. Maybe he was doing that with her, but it doesn't affect her in that way. She also doesn't mention him being verbally abusive or yelling at her or anything like that. And that's possible, like maybe he wasn't acting that way with Winona for some reason. Tim Burton mentions that Winona Ryder seemed to mellow him out in somewhat, but not enough, it seems, if he still used to smash everything. And I think that there's a big difference between Winona and Amber in terms of like the age difference and their life experience, because Amber started dating him when she was 25. Her brain was completely developed at that point. She's been in other relationships, healthier relationships, where this type of behavior was not normalized. She even talks about her dad, compares Johnny Depp to her dad, saying that her dad is a saint in comparison, even though they both had these addiction issues. And then when it comes to like Winona Ryder describing it as her girl-interrupted moment, in reference to that film where her character had borderline personality disorder, when they broke up, Winona checked herself into a mental hospital for a week because she was going through severe depression. And some of the behaviors she describes, it does kind of make sense why she's saying it's like girl interrupted. She talks about being severely depressed, that she drank all day, listening to sad music. She was prescribed some sleeping pills after being diagnosed with anticipatory nostalgia. And one night she had fallen asleep with a cigarette in her hand and woke up surrounded in flames. This is really not a healthy relation. It doesn't sound right. This doesn't sound normal or okay to me at all. Johnny Depp, Amber Heard describes Johnny Depp doing a similar thing. She said that he passed out when he was on these drugs and he had a lit cigarette in his hand. And she's saying that this thing was caused by sleeping pills. So the drugs I'm interested in what Johnny Depp's drug use was like when he was with Winona, because has Winona actually seen him when he's on drugs, and does she know what he's like when he's in that headspace? And again, with the borderline personality disorder, a lot of abused women, when they get out of the relationship, they do get diagnosed with these things, but it kind of gets muddled with the after effects of being in that kind of relationship. So I would question Amber's diagnosis. Winona did this interview kind of recently where she was saying that she doesn't like these crazy women labels, like her character in Stranger Things, like she doesn't like that she's been described as a crazy person, women constantly being described as crazy when they're not. And it's very easy, like, for everyone to look at his past exes and say that he just keeps getting into relationships with unstable women. If Winona has this history of, she went to this mental hospital, and then she had that scandal where she was shoplifting for no reason, and Johnny Depp commented on it when he was asked about it. He said, "I don't know what she was feeling or what she was going through, or what the reality is. I just hope she's okay, and I think she is. She's a very sharp kid." Again, he called her kid. He called Amber kid as well. And with the age difference that they have, like Winona being 9 years younger than him, people are wondering, like, is it a grooming type thing? Was their relationship healthy in that way, or was there an imbalance in their power? Because it wouldn't seem that way, because Winona's so successful in her career. She had like 2 Academy Award nominations 2 years in a row after they broke up. So she's very well accomplished. They kind of look like a power couple when you look at them, but maybe because of this age difference, there was this big imbalance in his head, and perhaps that's one of the reasons for the breakup. Like jealousy, things like that. They weren't specific as to the reason why they broke up. And I think it's like looking into Amber and Johnny's relationship, I also I couldn't tell that he was like a bigger star than her necessarily. Like, obviously he is, but she was just starting out. She was so young. She could have like been like Winona Ryder or any one of these like new kids, like Jennifer Lawrence, whatever, Emma Stone, who knows, like, because she was just starting out, I felt like. So she could have like rised up, and who knows what was stopping her. And when he's saying kid, and he kept referring to Amber as kid, and they have that gigantic age difference between the two of them, and at the end of the relationship, you hear Amber like berating him, disliking the unsolicited advice that he would give her about her career, not doing this and that. So I wonder if like he was kind of like doing the same thing with Winona. After they broke up, she talks about her depression that she went through, and saying, I think it was really ironic, because like everybody else thought I had everything in the world, you know. I had no reason to be depressed. Everything was sort of at its peak, but inside I was completely lost. So I think there's some sort of codependency thing happening, like after she broke up with Johnny, because she knew him from such a young age. It was her first relationship without him. There could be feelings of like not knowing what she should do, feeling lost in that same way. And even if she doesn't understand that is like, he was sort of being emotionally abusive or something. I don't know she hasn't given details about what happened in that relationship, but just the way that it ended, it makes me curious as to like why things spiraled for her after they broke up, and that maybe he was abusive, but she couldn't recognize what abuse was, like these different types of abuse, like maybe controlling behaviors. Maybe he was being jealous, paranoid, things like that, and she just couldn't pinpoint, like, that is he is kind of being abusive to me, and that's why I reacted that way. Hard to say, but she's so naive. I wouldn't take her words seriously in saying that he's so protective, so nice, because I'm seeing the exact same patterns with her as I do with Amber Heard. There's not too much of a difference between these two. Alright, so old Pumpkinhead here, Leonardo DiCaprio, worked with Johnny Depp and sort of experienced a bit of bullying on set, apparently. Johnny Depp talked about when he was filming this movie, he said that he was kind of out of control at that point with drugs and alcohol. He said that it was the darkest when he was filming this movie. Johnny said, "It was a hard time for me, that film, for some reason. I don't know why. I tortured him, I really did." Like, he tortured him. That's kind of weird word. And he doesn't explain what it means, what that kind of torture, what the bullying was, and what the story is. What he said in the interview, it doesn't really sound like torture to me. But what had happened was Leonardo DiCaprio signed into this movie because he wanted to work with Johnny Depp, and he rejected a big film, Hocus Pocus, to do it. And Johnny said that one of the ways he kind of tortured him was like sort of shutting him out, ignoring him, stuff like that. That's the sense that I'm getting. He said that he was always talking about these video games, you know. I told you it was kind of a dark period. And he was saying, "No, I will not give you a drag of my cigarette while you hide from your mother again, Leo." So I wonder if this is like stonewalling him. Like that's the extent of the torture. Like no physical abuse or anything like that, but just not giving him the time of day. Like apparently Leo was excited to work with him, and when he got there, like it was just completely ignoring him. Like perhaps that's what it was. Like he was just not in the mood to talk. He completely withdrew, and that's the extent of what the torture was, and that's all it was. And Amber mentions this kind of thing on the tapes. Like she's saying to him that he would like shut her out, that she would come to him trying to extend an olive branch, and then he would always shut her down, make her feel humiliated. But maybe that's what Leo felt like. It's a torturous thing, and it's the kind of thing like maybe you wouldn't consider it as like emotionally abusive, but if he himself is saying that it is torture and he knows that it's torture, then I wouldn't deny Amber's experience of like this emotional abuse thing. And she was asking him like, "Do you do that on purpose? Do you do that to punish me? Like whenever you split and disappear for no reason, am I being punished in some way?" And on the tapes, he never answers that question. Whenever Amber asks it, she keeps asking him that specific question, and he keeps kind of manipulating the conversation elsewhere and doesn't say if that's why he does what he does. But I think this interview is kind of telling, like, if that's what he considers to be torture, then he did emotionally abuse Amber in the same way he did with Leo. And he acknowledges that with this filming this movie, that kind of behavior was because of the drugs that he was on. And he was asked about what he took, and he said at that point, "I was never a cokehead or anything like that. I always despised that drug. I thought it was a waste of time, pointless, but I was poisoning myself with alcohol and medicating myself. I was trying to numb things." That's what he said in the trial. But we do know that he used cocaine around Amber. I wonder if that experience is kind of different. And he goes on, he was asked, "How far did it go? Were you ever an addict?" And he said, "No, thank God, I was never hooked on anything. I never had a monkey on my back. I just wanted to self-medicate, to numb myself through liquor. It's how I dealt with life, reality, stress, change, sadness, memories. The list goes on. I was really trying to feel nothing." And then when he was asked, "What led you to stop?" he said, "Family and friends sat me down and said, 'Listen, we love you, you're important to us, and you're fucking up, you're killing yourself, you're killing us in the process.'"
Letter, put it in an envelope every morning if you want, or on our little notebook.
What? What you do wrong?
No. Please don't. Please love me today. Please don't hurt me today. Please don't get crazy today.
Okay? Okay?
Stop. Okay.
Why are you saying stop? May I go?
Please, it causes me so much stress when you leave, when you walk away from me with that. It's like you don't understand how much worse you're making this.
I can't believe this.
Please, you're making it worse for me.
Okay, I'm sorry for you.
Please, I'm only trying to tell you so that you know you're causing me immense stress right now when you walk away like that. There's no reason to be mad.
Well, then say goodbye. I haven't walked away. You're not saying goodbye. You won't let me fucking leave. Let me leave.
Stop rushing me! Stop pushing me in the corner and then poking me with a stick and then saying, why aren't you saying the words you want me to say? Stop!
No, and you hit back, so don't act like you don't fucking
I
participate.
pushed you.
Stop rushing me! Stop throwing me against the wall! I'm going, what? You don't like that wall? You don't like the fucking wall? Stop pushing me!
This morning? I don't think so.
Stop pushing me!
I'm not pushing you. I'm rushing you. I said, I need space. I don't want this conversation anymore right now. I need space. And I will take my space. Whether you like it or not, I will take it. And you will take your space. But if you keep halting
I'm not doing anything
this
to you.
and continuing
I'm
with
not
the rhetoric,
continuing it. I'm begging you to stop.
I don't. Okay, stop. I'm stopped. Stop. Now I have to go. Okay? So we will speak to each other when I get home. We'll just talk, or we won't talk, or we'll finish this, or we won't finish it. But this is not love. This is not happiness. This is not.
Please stop doing this. Please, it causes me so much fucking stress. I'm gonna die at this age. I'm gonna fucking die. You're causing me so much stress. Please stop. Please, I feel like I have heart attacks almost every day. Please stop. Please stop doing it. Please stop. He's so fucking mean.
Why are you
fucking
with me?
bully. Stop. Please stop. I've been begging you not to fight. I just said, can we please have a normal argument? Just even a normal conversation, fucking normal argument. And for the last hour, I've been begging you to please just leave it at that. Let's just go on with our night. I would have been able to come in with you. We would have been able to let it go in a few minutes. It would have been fine. If we allowed ourselves to have fucking normal arguments. Please, you're killing me with this. You're killing me. You're fucking killing me. Fuck.
Sean, could you, please, I want you to just go. I want you to take your medicine or whatever. I'm sorry that I've upset you.
Yeah, I think. Thank you, Sean. I'm ready to go. Thank you so much.
I'm really sorry.
I'm really ready.
God, he's such a pusher. He's a pusher in every single sense of that word. He's a total master manipulator, much like all addicts are master manipulators. That's what they're really good at. And he, in the trial, brought up this thing where he joked about giving Marilyn Manson a pill to get him to shut up. Like kind of peer pressuring him. And with Amber, like his private medical staff getting her to take all these medications, Seroquel, after the Australia incident, they got her to take 4 times or 6 times the usual dosage that she was used to, and it was basically to sedate her. That's the effects of that drug, and that to me is still kind of, it makes me think that the sexual assault could have happened and they were trying to get her to forget, because that's also a side effect of Seroquel. I don't know why they this is not a good look for him, like that he medicated her in this way, and that he was the one to convince her to do this, because in the past, like, she was never on these types of things. They got given to her by his own private medical staff, and he convinced her to take it because that's the way that he knows how to deal with his problems is by using drugs, using alcohol to numb the pain. And he's pushing that on other people and thinking like that is the solution to these things, and it's not. And I also wanted to explain some of the context of like why Amber is saying this stuff that she's saying, because I think that people have made it out like she's super clingy and that she's being over dramatic and things like that. But even in the Gilbert Grape days, like, he talks about how he was spiraling with his drug addiction, and that his family and friends sat him down and said kind of the same thing to him, like when Amber was like, "You're killing me with this, please stop, you're killing me with this." He said that his family and friends said to him, "You're killing us in the process," of his substance abuse. So he's not doing anything that different to deal with his problems, and his friends and family aren't speaking up about like what that really looked like, his drug addiction. His sister was saying that she didn't remember him having an issue, even though she was texting him saying, "You have to stop with the coke" and all that stuff. She's like, "I don't recall doing this and that." And it's because she's on his payroll and she can't say anything. And so I wouldn't trust what she's saying. His friend, they have been saying that this has been an issue for him. And then there's this other thing where she's begging him to stop. And again, it makes her look, without the context, it makes her look hyperbolic and all this stuff. But he literally instructed her to say those exact words to him to get him to stop. He told her, always start the sentences with "please," telling him to beg her not to do it, and saying that, "You every day beg me not to, every day remind me not to hurt you, every day beg me to stop." Those were his instructions, and she's doing it right now. She's telling him not to, and he doesn't listen. She has absolutely zero control over him. She has no power over him at all. He does what he wants, and he said that in this recording. And even before that, there was this thing where he talked about the cruelest thing that she ever did to him was withhold his medication from him for like only 25 minutes, and he said that that was the cruelest thing she ever did. But again, Amber was only doing what was instructed to her by his doctor and nurse, so she was doing the right thing, and he called her cruel for doing it. So I just wanted to explain all this stuff and say that Amber's kind of being misrepresented when she's taken out of context in this way, and that she's being emotional, but there's a reason for her being emotional in this way. And at the end, you see the way that Johnny Depp was kind of being manipulative. He switched his tone. He said, "I'm so sorry, please take your medication." Like, he softened up. He became sweeter in his voice. It really does sound like gaslighting when I listen to these kinds of tapes. It really feels like Amber's being gaslit by him. Kate Moss and Johnny Depp dated for almost 4 years, and she said in 2012 that she cried for years after their relationship ended. And she said, "There's nobody that's ever really been able to take care of me. Johnny did that for a bit. I believed what he said. Like, if I said, 'What do I do?' he'd tell me. And that's what I missed when I left. I really lost the gouge of somebody I could trust." And I think this is an interesting quote, because I wanted to highlight there's a difference between what Kate Moss is like and what Amber's like, because Amber doesn't seem to like when Johnny tells her what to do. It's kind of an annoying thing to her, and there is a difference between these two women, and you can't lump him in and say that Amber would get the exact same treatment as Kate Moss, because if Kate Moss is always compliant, she never disagrees with him, she never questions his authority, then they wouldn't have as many issues. And that's what this quote makes it seem like a little bit. And there are other things where she talks about how she was interested in getting into acting, and Johnny Depp turned her away from it. He said that don't do it, like, you'll be a puppet, and he kind of tried to, like, he convinced her not to get into acting at that point. And he was apparently doing the same thing to Amber, trying to get her to, like, stop working, and Amber refused to listen to him. She never took his advice. Even he said that in the trial. He was upset with Amber because he was like, she should have taken my advice. She shouldn't have questioned my authority. I know better. That's basically what he's trying to say, is that she would have been better off in her career if she had just taken his advice. I don't agree with that at all. I think the advice that he gave her was completely useless. And I don't think Amber ever asked for his opinion on the things that he gave his opinion on. And then focusing on this thing where Kate saying that she was so emotional, that she was so broken up after they separated. She was crying for years. That's kind of similar to what Winona went through. She had that big emotional turmoil. She had this big state of depression. It makes you wonder, like, what's he doing to these women? Like, are they really denying any abuse, even emotional abuse? Because this is very odd to me that they crying for years after they broke up. That seems very strange. And then she also, when I read about Kate Moss, when I was learning about her, they kept framing her as like a clingy girlfriend, saying that she was, because she has this reputation of using drugs and alcohol to an excessive amount, and they said that she was the paranoid one and she was jealous and she would accuse him of cheating on her. And they said that she would always call him up and wondering like where he was when he was on set, all that kind of stuff. Like, they made her out to be like super, super clingy, and that she was obsessed with him and he wasn't. And even Tim Burton said, he expressed his belief like that Johnny Depp never really loved her, and that Winona was his like true love, and that a part of his soul was destroyed after they broke up, and he was never the same after her. And then Johnny Depp is saying something completely different to all of that. Like, he makes it seem like he was very in love with Kate Moss. He said that he's never been so emotional over a woman before, and he, after they broke up, he said that it was his fault. He said, "I have been so stupid because we had so much going for our relationship." And he also says, "I'm the one who has to take responsibility for what happened. I was difficult to get on with. I let my work get in the way, and I didn't give her the attention I should have done." So, is she? Which way is it? Is it that Kate Moss was being clingy, or he genuinely was not giving her enough attention for the relationship to work? So it's funny, like, the way that these things get twisted in the media, and like you could easily reverse things. And I think that there's a possibility that there's mutual abuse happening, and that's why she's not saying anything, because if she has this drug use history, like, I think from what I'm learning about her, if Amber Heard got turned into the abuser in their relationship, I think it would be very, very easy for Kate Moss to be turned into the actual abuser in this relationship, if that's the case. She never said anything when things came out. Like, Winona Ryder went out of her way to defend him. Kate Moss was completely silent that entire time. And then the only reason why she spoke up is because her name was mentioned, and she was forced to speak up and tell this staircase incident, and she spoke for 2 minutes. She didn't say too much about what happened. They didn't get into the real scandal that was why people believed that he might have been physically abusive. The biggest scandal that I know about with Johnny and Kate was what happened in the Mark Hotel, and there have been a lot of conflicting accounts and contradictory accounts about what happened. The papers reported that Kate Moss was sleeping in another room while he was arrested for this property destruction. The police described it kind of differently. They said that they found a possibly intoxicated Depp and a disheveled but uninjured Kate Moss in the middle of their ravaged guest room. Johnny was arrested and the charges were dropped, but he was ordered to pay the hotel nearly $10,000 worth of damages. And then Johnny said that the damage was done by an angry armadillo that popped out of the closet, but the armadillo was never found. And that's what the story kind of was. But we've seen a picture of Johnny Depp after the incident, and he looked completely uninjured to me, as far as I can tell. But we didn't see a picture of what Kate Moss looked like after the incident. But if the police said that they just said disheveled, so that's interesting. And then the people that were witnesses kind of to the incident said that they had a verbal argument between the couple, and that's what people thought happened, like it was a fight because Kate had accused him of cheating on her, and that's what they thought that the fight was about. One person said that they heard Kate Moss declaring, "You know what your problem is," and then she commented on his manhood, and that was, so it does seem like maybe it seems very similar to the type of insults that Amber was giving to him during the end. So if that's true, I don't understand what the difference is between Amber and every single other one of his exes, because they all seem to be doing similar things here. And the other thing that I found was that he describes that there wasn't an argument at all between him and Kate. He said it was just a personal thing, like a bad day. He said everyone has bad days, and, you know, some guys go play golf, some guys, you know, smash hotel rooms. And then there was this other quote where he said that the whole thing was crazy because I should never have got so worked up over what people had to say about my work. Sure, I should care about my movies, but when I get home, I should try to leave that stuff behind. I couldn't do that. And I was horrific to live with. Trust me, I'm a total moron sometimes. So this is kind of similar to what Jennifer Grey and Amber were wondering about. Like, he kind of has these rage issues that's not connected to anything that they're doing, and they're wondering if it's from work stress. And in this, he's saying that it is from work stress. It could be that Kate was accusing him of cheating. It's very unusual. It does seem like Kate Moss lied by saying that she was sleeping in another room, or whoever reported that they got that wrong and said that she was sleeping in another room during that incident because the police said different. So I wonder if she was possibly covering up for him, or maybe he's covering up for her. That's a possibility too. But this is what the main incident that made people wonder if he was abusive to Kate, because it was such a well-known fight and $10,000 worth of property damage. People wondered, did he ever, hit her in that whole fight? And the fight went on for hours, apparently. And it was just there were people from The Who, the band, I think, and they commented like the destruction that they did was kind of pathetic. They said that they could do the same amount of destruction within like 10 seconds. And again, it reminded me of Amber's story of the Australia incident and like the slow property destruction for hours and hours. And I think this is the difference of like someone hitting things, breaking things out of frustration and an impulsive thing, whereas someone smashing things slow motion as if it's like an intimidation tactic. And because Kate Moss was found in a disheveled kind of state, like maybe crying, who knows, it makes you wonder, like, was she scared when he did all that? So there's a lot to think about here. Ben Rottenborn brought up this incident in the Mark Hotel. He read out the final quote at the end where he says, I have a lot of love inside me and a lot of anger inside me as well. If I love somebody, then I'm gonna love him. If I'm angry and I've got to lash out or hit somebody, I'm going to do it, and I don't care what the repercussions are. Anger doesn't pay rent. It's got to go. It's got to be evicted. And when that quote was read in isolation, he said that it was possibly about paparazzis. And then they pointed out in the beginning that it said in the Mark Hotel, and that's the incident involving Kate Moss. And they specifically are refusing to ask him about Kate Moss, and I have my suspicions as to why that is. But anyway, he's saying that the rags said, well, he was a drunk and he was having a huge fight with his girlfriend, and he's saying that that was complete bullshit. I have this other quote from him about the hit, him having to like lash out or hit somebody, because this is the real thing that made people wonder if he was physically abusive to Kate Moss. I'm not aware of the staircase rumor, but this was the thing that made people wonder, because this is what he was arrested for. And he has this quote where he said, I didn't know what it was all for when they said, come on, do this movie, you can make tons of money. It just pissed me off. Fuck that. What does that mean? That's not what it's about. So it built up and I lost it. It's a culmination of many things. A bad spark. I went off. I did what I felt was necessary. Thank God it wasn't a human being, but a hotel room that I took it out on. It was a weird incident. There was a hotel security guard who was kind of pissy and arrogant. I wanted to pop him, but I knew that if I did, it would obviously be a horse of a different colour, lawsuits, and God knows what else. So this is a complete contradiction to what he said in the other quote, because he says, in one quote, he's like, I don't care what the repercussions are, I'll hit someone if I need to. And this one, he's talking about restraining the urge to hit someone. And it makes you wonder, is it that he already got it out of his system by... Maybe he did get it out of his system just by taking it out in the hotel room. Or maybe, like he said in the first quote, that he did lash out and actually hit someone, that someone being Kate Moss. It's very possible. She doesn't accuse him of doing anything, but she's never like... She didn't go out of her way to defend him like Winona Ryder did. Which is fair enough. Like, she doesn't need to defend him for no reason unless she was like called on it. And I think that with this hotel thing, like, he has taken responsibility for trashing this hotel room, and said that he multiple times he said that he did that. However, I think based on the way Amber's being treated, I think the mutual abuse thing could come in, and Kate Moss could get blamed for everything, because the witnesses at the time said that they heard her yelling at him like it was an actual argument. She wasn't asleep, and I think that if he wanted to, he could take everything back and say that he was protecting her, and that she was the one that destroyed the hotel, and she was yelling at him, and she was the abusive one in this situation. Kate Moss has a reputation of for trashing a hotel room before, like without Johnny Depp, that like she's done that herself, and she has that drug history. So even though he's already come forward and taken responsibility multiple times, it's the same way that multiple times he's apologized and said that he is the main culprit in most of their fights between him and Amber. He's saying that it's his fault most of the time. He could, if Kate were to cross him, he could easily take it all back and try to blame her, because honestly, if Amber is not seen as a perfect victim, Kate really wouldn't be, just from what I can tell here. But there are quotes from back then where they said that Kate was often on a razor's edge when she was with Johnny, and that she was afraid of his rages. I think that their relationship seems quite odd, like the fact that she said that she was crying years after they broke up. That's so strange to me. I wonder what he's doing to these women that makes them like act that way, like that they're so emotionally torn apart when they break up. It seems so. There seems to be a pattern so far between Amber and all his women. I can't see what Amber did that was so different to provoke a kind of response, and I think that Kate has a lot of reasons to lie. I've also noticed that Naomi Campbell has been very supportive of Johnny Depp throughout this thing. She keeps like leaving emojis on his Instagram posts and things like that. And Kate Moss and Naomi Campbell were sort of best friends back in the day. I was trying to find pictures of the three of them together, but I couldn't find any. I found a picture of Naomi with Johnny Depp like an older age, so I don't know if she knew her at the time when she was dating him, but when Kate had to testify about the staircase incident, she was saying, "Yes, wagon, tell it." Okay. And I'm not sure if she even would know if Kate Moss was abused or anything like that. And when I look into Naomi's history with that kind of thing, did Johnny Depp actually want this woman to take his side? Like, I don't think it's good for him for this lady to be on his side when we're talking about abuse. Because something that she's known for being physically abusive to quite a few people. Like, she pleaded guilty in Toronto for assaulting her personal assistant with a mobile phone, which is what Johnny Depp allegedly did to Amber. This is actually confirmed that Johnny Depp did throw a phone and hit Amber in the face. That is kind of a confirmed thing at this point. So it's the same thing. So I don't think this lady is good to be on his side. Like, if she's also been convicted of assault on 4 occasions, and she's been accused of it 11 times. Like, against her employees, like just innocent employees, she was violent towards them. Why would he want this woman on his side? Couldn't he just like tell her, "Hey, hush, I don't want you to speak up for me"? Because it just makes him look bad for an abusive person to like back him up, I think. But I just thought that was really interesting. Kate has been in some other kind of tumultuous, volatile relationships. Her ex-boyfriend Jamie Hintz and her were photographed with some injuries. She has some scratches on her cheek, and he has a black eye. And they at first claimed that this was a result of an accident involving Christmas decorations. And there's also a quote from her where she said, "We had a bit of a scuffle and I was wearing a chunky ring which caught him right in the eye. It's all okay now though. We fight and we have our ups and downs like anyone really." So I just, taking into account like who her friends are, and then that Mark Hotel incident, could it be possible that she maybe normalizes violence, like physical violence? And then she's like, yeah, it's not a big deal that she like punched him. She's admitting to punching him in the eye, it seems, and saying that they had a scuffle. So maybe that's something that is normal to her. And I'd also like to note that she dated Johnny Depp when she was 20, and there was like a 10-year age gap. And he was a very serious relationship because she dated him for 4 years. So I wonder if like maybe that's why she thinks it's normal, because if he was violent with her in that relationship, maybe she's moved on and started to be the physically abusive one in other relationships. I don't know. But there seems, because now there's like evidence of her being a physical assaulter in a way. So it makes me think that of all people, she really would not want to come forward with allegations against Johnny Depp and have it used against her when there's stuff like this, and have it turned around and for her to be called the abusive one in the end. Kate Moss also had a turbulent relationship with Pete Doherty of the Libertines, and he spoke about it and said that because he has these well-known addiction issues, he said that Kate Moss was trying to help him get clean, and said that if he got clean, everything would be fine. He said that Kate had an obsession with the tabloids and her image, which is very similar to the way Amber's being portrayed in in this whole trial. Like, they said that she's very obsessed with her image, and I don't like this, that he characterized her in that way. He explains what that was about, because there's an image of Kate Moss that was sold for $300,000, and apparently one of his friends was the one that sold it, and he gave it to the Mirror, and that's the thing that made her lose contracts. She lost a $4 million a year contract with H&M, and it was, the headline said "High as a Kate," and it was her doing cocaine, I think. And I just wanted to point out that this is the true reason why Johnny Depp is fired from Pirates. It's like all these lawsuits that he's doing, that he revealed his drug addiction issues. This is the real reason why people get fired from stuff like this. And to say that she's just like obsessed with her image and all that, like, that's not. It makes her seem like she's really conceited and there's something wrong with the way she's acting, but that's not really true. Like, she has to be conscious of these kinds of things because it's a bigger deal for women. He's allowed, like, men like Johnny Depp and Pete Doherty, they can be out there, out and about, and show their substance abuse issues and face no backlash. But then when a woman does it, it's so much worse. Like, you can see the way they get vilified in the media, so you can't compare it and say like that it's the same thing between them, because there is a difference between men and women in that way. And then when they broke up, Kate has this quote where she says that she wished she'd never met him, and she says he's a user in every sense of the word, which kind of reminded me of the thing that Amber was saying to Johnny at the end of their relationship, where she called him the biggest seller of fake goods. And she said that she wished she never bought into his lies and his sweetness and all that stuff when he was sober. So I think that's kind of interesting. Like, the addiction issues that they have are being swept under the rug, and people are acting like it's not a big deal that they have these addiction issues. But addiction issues completely destroy relationships, and I see a lot of similarities here between Kate Moss and Amber Heard, like in the way that they've been in the relationships. And Pete Doherty has kind of accused Kate of being abusive in some ways, and I don't think Kate Moss is going to sue him for defamation of character or anything like that, because it would never work out in her favor to do that. And for someone who is image conscious, they would know, like, getting into these legal battles with an ex publicly, it never does you any good. It would hurt her career if she ever tried to fight this thing of what he's saying. Not to say that he's a liar or anything like that, but it's never good to like try to say it's all a lie or anything like that. I do believe Pete's claims about her. Because I don't think there's any reason to lie, but he used her name, he said everything like that, but it doesn't need to be a big deal if you don't make it a big deal. And when Amber Heard released her op-ed that didn't use his name, no one cared about it, no one was interested in it, no one said that was the thing. It's his own interviews with GQ and Rolling Stone where he was telling on himself and said all these negative things about himself, sneaking in a bad word into the Pirates of the Caribbean movie, talking about all his drug use, his drinking habits, all this kind of stuff that made him look really bad. Talking about this, reminding people of the rumor that he might have, offed River Phoenix in a jealous kind of thing, like that kind of. There's so many things that he said that he probably should not have said, and it was all his doing. Pete describes their relationship for those years being very up and down, like them having highs and then crushing violent lows. He's not describing what he means by the violent lows. It's unlikely that he would be confessing on himself, so it sounds like he's kind of accusing her of like being the aggressor in a way, in a slight way. He talks about an incident where he pressed a panic button in their house accidentally, and that she was very unhappy about that. I'm not sure what happened there, but he's kind of bringing up these rumors And then he talks about this thing, like after they broke up, he said that she burned a lot of his stuff to inflict emotional damage to him, and that he had this teddy bear, his first ever teddy bear, that his sister gave him as a huge gesture of love and kinship, and he'd been holding on to him for his whole life, and then Kate ended up burning it up along with all his other stuff when they split. And he said that there was no need for that unless she simply wanted to cause him as much emotional damage as possible. And the destruction of property in that way is domestic abuse. Like, what he's describing here is domestic abuse. And if Kate Moss was the one that did it, like, it's very unlikely that she would want to come forward and talk about times where she was a victim of abuse, because that's something that apparently people won't believe, that she was ever a victim if she was shown to be abusive to other people, which is what has been said about Amber Heard. And this whole property destruction thing has been a thing that was proven that Johnny Depp did to Amber in their relationship. He has been known to, like, destroy her clothes, rip them up, throw paint on them, things like that. And that is defined as domestic abuse in my book. And just in the law, I think it tends to be described like that is, it's not right to do. And I think this is one of the reasons why Johnny Depp's lawyers were like fist bumping about this whole thing, because they knew that Kate Moss would never speak up. I'm not saying that he was violent to Kate Moss, but because there's things like this out there, they know that because she's so image conscious, she would never speak up about abuse. And then when I'm looking at some of the things that Amber's lawyers are saying, and the way that they've kind of navigated away from talking about Kate Moss in their questioning, and when she was brought in there to speak for 2 minutes, they asked if they wanted to cross-examine, and Amber's team immediately said no, they weren't interested in that. And I wonder if, like, Amber maybe knows something about if there was physical violence, and she knows not to bring Kate Moss up. There's that interview after the fact with Guthrie where she said that no other woman would want to come forward in this atmosphere. So I wonder if, like, she might know that Kate Moss was also had gone through the same thing with Johnny, and she knows why the reasons why Kate would never speak up about it. So one of the reasons why I can't take Kate Moss's words too seriously is because there are pictures of her with Cara Delevingne and Amber Heard looking very cozy together. And, you know, just the existence of these photos, if she were to come forward with abuse allegations, you can see how, like, people would look at these pictures and just say, oh, well, obviously these three had a threesome and they got together and they conspired to take this man down and, like, make him out to be like three witches and, like, make fun of all three of them and say that Kate is just this bitter ex and she never got over him, and she's getting older and she's desperate for fame and attention again. And that it just doesn't seem like there's a comfortable environment for her to say anything just based on the existence of these pictures. I just don't think it could happen. I think Johnny Depp's fatal flaw here is that he maybe talks a bit too much, like he seems to be telling on himself or something. There's this quote from Rolling Stone magazine in 1998 where he was recalling this conversation with his friend Hunter S. Thompson, where he was talking about his relationship with Kate Moss, and he said, I was with Kate and I think he went straight for the romance jugular. Shit like whether I beat her enough. Depp laughed. I probably told him, yeah, she gets a severe beating. It's just, like, it's so many questions here. Like, why does he say that that's the romance jugular? Is, like, if he beat her enough. Why is that the romance jugular in his head? And then he's joking about giving her a severe beating. So he's the one, he keeps joking about beating women up, even in like his text messages, like that came up in this trial. That seems to be coming up. And Hunter S. Thompson also had this quote where he had been accused of beating his wife, and he once said, "To keep a woman in line, you gotta beat her like a rag every once in a while." So it makes you wonder, like, is the joke, is it kind of funny because it's a little bit true, or is it just like meaningless abstract garbage that doesn't mean anything? That's the question. And considering like Amber Heard's background, like her dad being a violent person, he also, Johnny Depp was kind of friendly with Amber Heard's dad and said that he reminded him of Hunter S. Thompson. So I wonder if like maybe if Amber is the only victim, is it because he recognized that he could get away with doing that kind of thing because after meeting her family, he knew that she would normalize that behavior, something like that. But that's something that I've been wondering about. But this is a very weird quote. And these rumors that he maybe was physically abusive to Kate Moss, they didn't come out of nowhere. They came out of him a little bit. Like, he's the one that was like saying things that made people question what was going on in their relationship, and that's why there were some things behind the scenes where people were wondering if he was like hitting Kate Moss or something.
Okay, don't worry.
When Amber brought up this staircase incident, I don't think she's talking about a rainy day in Jamaica. She said that everyone in the 90s, early aughts knew this rumor where Johnny Depp had allegedly pushed Kate Moss down some stairs. And I think she means like an indoor staircase, like a proper staircase, not like 3 steps or what Johnny Depp described. I don't think that's what she's talking about at all. And I'm wondering if like, I'm not convinced that this is a lie, because knowing that Kate Moss and Johnny Depp were both into drugs and alcohol at that time, I think it's possible that something like this could have happened and the two of them genuinely do not remember it, like they were both in a blackout state. So maybe he did do it and he doesn't remember doing it. Also, it could be that Kate was like drunk and she fell down some stairs and Johnny Depp was nearby, and so someone saw Kate down some stairs and then they thought that maybe Johnny Depp was the one that pushed her and he wasn't. So I think that's probably what the rumor might have been about. I don't think it was about Jamaica at all. I definitely don't believe that Johnny Depp told Amber Heard this innocuous story of Kate slipping on a rainy day. That makes zero sense. There is still that possibility that Kate Moss could have lied to protect him, like she did in the Mark Hotel incident where she was reported to be asleep in a different room, but the police said that they found her in the middle of the room on the floor looking disheveled. So it seems like she's already lied to protect him before. But I think it is a real rumor, and like people who are more in the know about it, but like us outside people wouldn't know what the actual thing is. Like, it's like the whole who bit Beyonce thing. Like, people who are there know who bit her, but you know, us as the public, we aren't privy to that kind of information. So I think that could be what it's all about, and I think the rumor could be true or not. Like, he might have pushed her down some stairs for all I know, and I'm not convinced that he didn't. With Vanessa Paradis, much like everyone else, he kind of describes it as a love at first sight thing. He says that he was working on this movie and he turned around and across the lobby saw this back. She had on a dress with an exposed back. I thought, wow. Suddenly the back turned around and she looked at me. I walked right over and there were those eyes again. I knew it was her. She asked, "Do you remember me?" I said, "Oh yeah." And we had a drink and it was all over at that point. I knew I was in big trouble. They fell in love like very quickly, and it moved really quickly because she got pregnant, I think accidentally, like months into the relationship. And but he's talking about some of the things that he really liked about her, which I thought was really interesting. He said that he worked these long days, and he'd come back at like 3 or 4 in the morning. Vanessa was there and she was cooking for me. That's not to say that a woman must cook for a man. That's not what I'm saying. But it took me by surprise. It was a whole new ball game for me. I'd never experienced that before. It was like she was a woman, not afraid to be a woman. I hope that doesn't sound weird or sexist, because it's not. I'm totally in agreement that women are the stronger, smarter, more evolved sex. That is the full context for that quote, by the way. And I thought it was like, it did not sound weird or sexist to begin with. Like when he was just saying that he liked that his girlfriend cooked for him, that was fine. But he just makes it weird at the end. Like he just talks a bit too much. He overcompensated a bit too much by saying all that stuff. And I also think that Vanessa sounds a lot like what Amber was doing in her relationship with him, because we know that Amber loves to cook, so I'd imagine she did that. But he also describes this boots routine thing, that she would take off his boots for him, and it does sound like Vanessa and Amber have a lot in common when it comes to that. There's this other quote from him where he says, "I fell in love with Vanessa the moment I set eyes on her. I was a lost cause at that point, but what touched me immediately afterwards was her tenderness. Very quickly I realized that I couldn't live without her." But so, yeah, they do have that in common. Like, he speaks the same way about all his girlfriends. I don't see what exactly Amber did that was so different from everyone else. Because she seems to fit the description of all his exes so far, so I don't know what could have possibly set him off with her in particular. In the UK trial, Vanessa Paradis, the mother of his kids, came forward and gave some statements in support of him. She wrote a handwritten letter that said, "To whom it may concern, Johnny Depp is the father of my 2 children. He is a sensitive, loving, and loved person, and I believe with all my heart that these recent allegations being made are outrageous. In all the 5 years I have known Johnny, he has never been physically abusive with me. And this looks nothing like the man I lived with for 14 wonderful years." And then she signed that. And there's this other statement that I found where she says, "This is nothing like the true Johnny I have known. And from my personal experience of many years, I can say he was never violent or abusive to me. I have seen that these outrageous statements have been really distressing and also caused damage to his career, because unfortunately people have gone on believing these false facts. This is so upsetting, as he has helped so many persons in his personal and professional life with kindness and generosity." Okay, I don't like that second statement. False facts. That's so okay. How can she say that it's false facts if she doesn't know? I don't like this statement at all. Winona at least had the decency to say that she's not going to speak for other people and she's not going to say what happened in Amber's relationships. And then she's saying that the recent allegations are outrageous. She used the word outrageous. I believe that Vanessa's lying. Like, this doesn't sound right to me. And then I wanted to compare it to like what Lily Rose was texting to Johnny at that time. She said that Amber was a good influence on him with the alcohol and substance abuse issues, because that was a thing even back then. And she said, "You've been a better dad to Jack and I since she has been around. And she was helping with the alcohol problem. I just see what a positive effect she's had on you, and I'm afraid that those things will leave with her. Please don't write her off now. She may surprise you and explain herself." And then he said to her, "I'm not going back to booze. We will see what happens with her." So it seems like Amber was being helpful to him. And because Lily Rose is saying that he was not around for a lot of that time, he was not there for them. So when she's saying that she lived with him for 14 wonderful years, he's away for so much of that time. Who knows what he gets up to? He was kind of dating Amber at the same time as her. And in general, like, I just want to explain, like, this thing with Amber, her starting off as a side chick is significant, because I don't think that his official public girlfriends, maybe he treats them very differently to the other women in his life, because there's also this woman called Rochelle who he was apparently cheating on Amber with. So there's other women, and we don't know what they have to say, how he's treated them, just his public girlfriends. And Vanessa has a lot of incentive to lie and be dishonest about this stuff, and their breakup did not go too well, so I find her saying these nice things about him very suspicious. And she reportedly got a $100 to $150 million payment after they broke up, and she signed a non-disclosure agreement. Johnny Depp described her as a French extortionist cunt. After the stuff, he called her an extortionist. And I wonder, like, why do people not call Vanessa Paradis a gold digger? Is it because she happens to say the things that everyone wants to hear? And that's the reason why no one's saying that she's a gold digger, even though she took such a big payout from him. And with their breakup, he was publicly, like, blaming and saying that Vanessa did so many things wrong in their relationship that she wanted to break up from him like 2 years beforehand, because she was unhappy, that she complained all the time about their lifestyle, and she didn't want to, she was bored and restless, and that she said that he wasn't doing enough in their relationship with their kids. She was the one that insisted for him to do the Pirates of the Caribbean, this big budget movie, because he's saying that she loved the money. And Johnny wasn't interested in doing it, and he only did it for her. All this stuff, like, he kept blaming her for so many things that happened in their relationship. And then when he got together with Amber, there's this yacht that has a name that is a combination of Vanessa, his name, and the names of his children. Is called Vajaliroja. And he changed the name of that yacht into Amphitrite, which is supposed to be in dedication to Amber. And Amphitrite is a sea goddess and Poseidon's wife in Greek mythology. So that's so bizarre that he named this yacht after his much younger girlfriend after they got married. And he said that he did it because he wanted to cut off every tie to Vanessa. And maybe, like, people are gonna, like, look at that and say, oh, it's because Amber pressured him to do that. I don't know. I feel like he makes his own decisions. Whenever he's with someone, there's this pattern where he's so obsessed and he loves them, and then when they're done, just immediately after, he decides that the women that he's with is just like a gold digger, they're scum, He's like that with all of them. It's so love or hate. He's saying to someone, I love you so much, and then seconds later, he's saying, you don't exist. And he said that to Amber on tape multiple times. So there's some... Vanessa Paradis' whole statement is very sketchy to me. I'm not sure if I could trust what she's saying here. And Lily Rose telling him, like, you've been so much better since she's been around, talking about Amber, saying, we have talked about how for a couple of years you weren't around for us, and that changed when Amber came into your life. I don't want to go back to that. So she keeps saying that Amber was such a good influence. I keep seeing so much evidence of Amber being good to him, and I don't know how this is getting lost in this trial and how it's being reinterpreted to be something else. And now, like, none of his family are saying anything in support of him. Vanessa or Lily Rose, that they've been completely silent about this whole thing. He doesn't seem to be speaking to them, and now he's gone back to drinking. We've seen that after the trial ended for celebration. You can see him like having drinks, and Lily Rose does not like that. He said that before, that when he went back to drinking, Lily Rose hated him. So it just seems like this, it's not really backing up what he's saying. Like, if now the silence from these members is saying a lot to me right now. It's so bizarre to me that Vanessa's saying that Amber's claims of the abuse were so outrageous and it's nothing like the Johnny that she knows, when there's this incident in 99 where Johnny was having dinner with her while she was pregnant, and there was some paparazzi there, and they tried to take a picture, and Depp picked up this piece of wood and started like smacking the hell out of them. So she's seen him be violent before, and he described the incident. He said that I looked down at the ground and there was a 17-inch wooden plank, a 2x2 or something. Instinct took over. I picked it up and whacked the guy's hand. I went outside and said, now I want you to take my picture, because the first fucking guy who hits a flash, I'm going to kick his skull in. Let's go, take my picture. And he says that they didn't take my picture. I was livid. They walked backward down the street. I walked them away from Vanessa in the car and down the other street. It was beautiful. It was well worth it. It was kind of poetic. The next thing I knew, I saw flashing lights on the building around me and a paddy wagon. He seems like he really wanted to have this fight, and he used like an actual weapon. He seems really into it. It's like that text where he says that he's an insane person and he loves it, and in this time he was like, I really wanted to have this fight, and I was so livid that they backed away and this and that. I don't see why Vanessa is saying that's so outrageous. The idea of him being a violent person is so unbelievable based on her observing something like this. I have this quote from Johnny talking about Vanessa where he says that she is the miracle in his life. He says, I feel though I've met the one you used to think about as a child, the one that you were searching the world for, trying to find. She's incredibly understanding, and she's been dealing with me for years, which is no mean task. We're on the same page, she and I. Interesting. And there's this other interview with her in 2001, so it was after the paparazzi thing, where he was hitting people and got arrested, and they were talking about this image of them being rebels and provocateurs, and she's like, oh, that's ridiculous. And then she was saying that when he has this fit of fury, and he has a reason for it somewhere, and she said that she didn't want to go into the details, and that it was his story, but most of it happened before we met. So in the beginning, when I thought that she was saying that he was acting like that, I thought it would be in reference to the paparazzi incident, but she's saying that it was something before, and I wonder if it's in reference to Kate Moss, like maybe there was another person before her, because that was the other incident, the Mark Hotel thing, and maybe he explained that to her, and he's saying that that's the reason why he acted that way. I'm very curious about what that all means. And then there's this other question where they asked her, do you have a lot of patience? And she says that she has to, because Johnny Depp is impulsive and intolerable, and that she needs to calm it down. And she says, but it's not like me to deal with everything. We take turns. Sometimes I feel like screaming or throwing a plate on the wall. Which reminds me of Amber Heard, like saying that she does the same thing. She throws things in frustration. His mother would throw things in frustration, like an ashtray and things like that. And she's saying from time to time you have to do it. And going back to the quote with Amber, where she says, I can't promise you that I'll be perfect. I can't promise you that I won't get physical again. God, I fucking sometimes get so mad I lose it. It sounds like Amber Heard and Vanessa Paradis have a lot in common. I don't see what Amber Heard did that is so unusual. This vague thing of her getting physical, I mean, it could be in reference to like throwing pots and pans, because that's what that's what they both said on the tapes, is them throwing things. And he says to Amber that she is being irrational when she throws things, but she's accusing him of also throwing things, and says that they shouldn't have this long argument about who threw what and this and that. So I just think that's really interesting. Like, I don't see any difference between Amber and all these other women. So how can she have such a wildly different experience? And again, this other quote where she's saying that Johnny, she has to give in before he does, because he's always like the worst one when it comes to this. He's the one with the actual rage issues. And she's saying that Johnny just needs a spark and it explodes, which is what he said in reference to the Mark Hotel incident. And she says that he can also be very calm and he can control his inner demons. And then when he does that, he's even calmer than she is. So that makes a lot. I mean, it does kind of fit. Like, there's no difference between any of these women. And I think one of the reasons why they're not speaking up is because they are exhibiting the same signs as Amber has done. And if they come forward, they could twist things and say it's mutual abuse, and maybe be portrayed as like the villain and say that all his exes are just as bad as he is, because maybe they do, it's kind of equal, their fights. He doesn't escalate it as much as he escalated it with Amber, because Amber was someone who just never gave in. And people like Vanessa and Kate Moss, maybe they threw in the towel, whereas Amber wouldn't. But that doesn't mean that Amber's like more at fault, I don't think, because if he has the consistent issue, I think you would point the finger more at him. There's a bunch of Me Too's. Why are you saying that there's no Me Too's? And the reason why they can't speak up is, well, first of all, Vanessa signed an NDA, so she can't really say anything. And Kate Moss is image conscious, so having this type of thing with the history that she has is not going to be good for her. So there's all kinds of reasons why I wouldn't expect some of these women to say anything, and I don't blame them for not saying anything. But to say that he's like so far from being a violent person with all this, it seems very unlikely to me. There's so many incentives for them to not say anything, and they could easily be twisted to be the villain, just like they've seen Amber be twisted to be the villain. And they could all say Johnny Depp is so bad for him, like he keeps getting into relationships with women that are exactly like his mother. All the women he gets into relationships are crazy, abusive women, and that's basically what I think the outcome would have been, because I don't believe people would have believed them if they decided to come forward. And there's a double standard where apparently Amber gets called a gold digger for taking a fifth of what she's entitled to, but Vanessa doesn't get called a gold digger even though she took over 100 million to stay silent. Like, it's just the hypocrisy is so obvious. Like, you only prefer Kate Moss and Vanessa because they're saying the things that people wanted to hear. They didn't want Johnny to be this bad person who was abusing the women he was with, being a bully, all that stuff. They didn't want that for him, so that's why they said what they said. But he's clearly been a bully to Amber, and there's evidence on it. There's tons of evidence of it on the tapes, and it's undeniable. It doesn't matter if there's no Me Too's. I do think that there are Me Too's. I think I've shown that they're there, but it's just they're not going to say anything.
Mr. Depp, who are you communicating with in these text messages?
In fact, though it says Marino, these are texts between my ex, that is to say, the Vanessa Paradis, the mother of my children. And this is again, abstract humor that we're conveying back and forth to one another. This was all it was a joke. It certainly wasn't about Miss Heard. We didn't speak of her much together.
Do you recall what you were talking about?
don't recall who it was. I don't recall who it was, but it was someone who had, for some reason, I think it was. I think that the possibility is that 2013. It might have been, we had a nanny at one point, who we, in fact, we had, we found her, she was caught stealing, even from my, at the time, my, maybe 10, 11-year-old boy, Jack, who was bright enough, because he knew it, he was bright enough, he had a $5 bill that he wadded up and put on his desk in his bedroom, and when he came home from school...
Your Honor, I'm just going to object on relevance. The question was, who was this about?
What you just said is one of the most insanely idiotic things I have ever heard. At no point in your rambling, incoherent response were you even close to anything that could be considered a rational thought. Everyone in this room is now dumber for having listened to it. God have mercy on your soul.
I got so annoyed with Rottenborn for cutting him off in this whole thing. Like, this is the funniest thing to me. And I was unbelievably annoyed that we didn't get to see how far the rabbit hole would go for this. Like, and my favorite part in all that was the bit where he kind of like whispered 2013. He was like 2013, as if like that gave him all the information he needed to remember everything. And he's like, it jogged his memory. Just a year gave him everything he needed to know. Like, he can picture it now. He can see the rolled up $5 bill on his son's desk. He can picture it right now. It's so ridiculous. And just like common sense, like, it's that that nanny that works for Johnny Depp would not steal a $5 bill from an 11-year-old boy. So why does he choose to do this? Why does he lie for no reason? Why did he choose to say that under oath? He didn't need to do all that. And the text exchange, when you read it, it really doesn't make any sense. I don't understand why he decided to go this way with it. So they begin this whole thing by him saying, "I will bring some cash over and tip the bitch." Now, why would he tip the bitch that stole money from him? It's ludicrous. That's not it. It's just not about the nanny. And the nanny did not steal that money from him. Like, his people get paid so much. Why would they choose to do that? Why? It's so unbelievable to me. Anyway, Vanessa apparently replied saying, "Yeah, sloppy slut." He says, "Fucking ugly fat whore." Vanessa says, "Bring the cash and the whore." And Johnny says, "For the idiot cow. Will do. I'll smack the ugly cunt around before I let her in. Don't worry." Then he says, "Did that worthless hooker arrive?" And he's saying it was a joke, it's meaningless, abstract garbage, he doesn't know what it means. But the idea that these two millionaires got so wound up by someone stealing a $5 bill from them that they're saying all this mean-spirited things, it makes no sense. But it's a really glorious idea, isn't it, that these two millionaires are just so mad that they said all this stuff. And he said that he wasn't joking about Amber in this. Like, it's definitely not about Amber. I just don't know why why did he think that choosing to say this about her nanny is better for him? Like, he's already joked about beating Kate Moss up. Who knows if that's true or not, but what's the big deal if he admits that it is about Amber? Why is he choosing not to admit that? like, why does he think that that's better? Like saying, oh no, it wasn't about beating up Amber. I was just joking about beating up a different woman that used to work for me. So it's the same thing. I don't know why he thinks it would be a better cover. And is it like because she's his nanny, it's like different? You're allowed to beat up people that work for you or something? Is that the difference? Like you're allowed to hit the help, didn't you know? Sounds like Gregg Brooks was not aware that this was okay to happen. He was a crew member for a film called City of Lies that Johnny Depp was working on, and he recently sued Johnny Depp for assaulting him on set. His story is that Johnny Depp punched him twice in the ribs, and this was after a heated thing where the actor-director told him that a scene wasn't working and he had to go to Johnny to tell him something, and then he's alleging that Johnny was yelling at him, saying that he shouldn't tell him what to do, this and that, which is a similar thing that Amber is describing, like anytime she, tried to be authoritative over him or something like that, he didn't appreciate that, and that's why she said that he reacted physically to her. So there's a Me Too for this kind of situation. And he said that Brooks, after this whole thing happened, Johnny Depp was arrested, and Johnny Depp admitted to doing it in a magazine, saying that he smacked the location manager in GQ, the print version, but they took it out on the online version. But yeah, so there's already a lot stacked against him to say that this incident did happen. And Brooks also adds that after it, that Johnny yelled at him and told him to punch him back, and said that he'd give him $100,000 to do it, which is a very interesting detail. Like, I don't think that's a detail that he would have just made up. And he says after the fact that he was supposed to sign an NDA, and he ended up not signing the NDA and ended up getting fired for that because he wouldn't comply, and possibly getting blackballed in the industry based on what Johnny Depp said after this thing. So again, this seems to match up with Amber saying, because he seems to be trying to get her fired from her movie after she left him. He said that he wanted her fired from Aquaman, so whenever someone disagrees with him, that seems to be the way he handles it. And Johnny Depp has a different version of events where he's saying that Gregg Brooks provoked his actions because he was being verbally abusive to a homeless African-American woman, and Johnny Depp was just standing up for her and trying to protect her, and he was basically trying to be a hero in that moment, and that's how he handled that situation. Oh, and he's Mr. Black Lives Matter all of a sudden. Like, Gregg Brooks denied that this black woman on set even existed. Like, he's saying that it was a closed set. There was no homeless people on the set at all. It sounds like Johnny Depp made her up. She's a fictitious woman that didn't exist. And it's like the angry armadillo in the hotel that no one ever found. It's the same thing. And just in general, like, this is a stupid defense. They ended up settling out of court. There's no way for Johnny Depp to win this thing. If things are fair, there's no way for him to win this thing. Based on all the evidence against him, he admits to doing it, and the only thing he's got to say is that he did it to protect this fictional woman. And just like, this is not the way civilized people handle things. And just on behalf of all black women, I just think that he should, like, quit defending the honor of fictional black women. It's not helpful to anyone to do it like that. And it's never going to be his thing. Like, there's just text messages from him and things in his past. It's like the whole, protecting the honor of black women. It's just never going to be his thing. Black women tend to take Amber Heard's side in this overwhelmingly on social media, so I'm wondering, like, why, like, if that's maybe a thing that they know that it's not gonna pan out too good. There's also that Will Smith scandal of him slapping Chris Rock and his Oscar being taken away. So then if Johnny Depp were to win this thing and it would just highlight a white man's privilege in getting away with that kind of thing, because he did the same thing, except it's worse because it's an innocent crew member, so it's definitely worse. And for him to be able to get away with it, and there's so much evidence of him like using drugs and alcohol at that time. There's an article about how much money was lost in that film, and that Johnny Depp was sick and had to miss some days when he was doing that film, and he was in bad shape. So there's too much against him. He's lucky. I want to know how much Gregg Brooks got out of this whole thing. I hope he made a lot of money out of this, because he had so much going for it. There's no way, I don't think there's any way for him to be able to spin this for it to make sense. If he's admitted to doing it before, and his only defense is that he was doing it in defense, like that, it's just not gonna fly in this year. It just doesn't really make any sense now. And like, I just wanted to point out the difference in the lawsuits of Gregg Brooks accusing Johnny Depp of assault and battery. He could have sued Amber Heard for assault and battery if he wanted to make that case, if that's what he's saying that Amber did to him. But no, he decided to do it about defamation of character, and in doing so, he committed this gigantic hate crime, basically, and made it impossible for women to speak up about their abuse without the threat of a lawsuit. So this thing is never gonna work for him in the end. He did a big mistake doing things like this, and it's not gonna pan out too good in the future.
Now, when people speak about feminism, I definitely think that there are now going to be some level of negative connotations because of this case, because people will see that somebody, a big celebrity in Hollywood, has taken feminism and took advantage of that and used that to ruin somebody's life. That's not feminism, but that is definitely them taking advantage of that movement, the Me Too movement, for example, and that is absolutely disturbing, and it is something that we should definitely take into context, that Amber Heard has most definitely done a lot of damage to feminism. I really don't think that this is a yes or no sort of scenario here. I definitely think that for the most part, this is a very good thing that male abusers are finally getting spoken up for.
What the hell did you just say?
But this is a very good thing that male abusers are finally getting spoken up for.
Ultimately, I think that this trial was a really good thing to happen. I'm glad it happened publicly with cameras and all that stuff. I think it's good to like know the truth, see people's true colors. Like personally, I never really liked feminism or egalitarianism and stuff. Like, I don't like the definition. I don't think equality is like a good word. I think it's like too floofy of a word. No one really understands what it means. And the things that they were saying about Amber Heard in this trial, like, exposed like all the misogyny, like the way that people like saying that she did what she did to ruin his life. Like, they jumped to that conclusion that she faked her bruises to try to ruin this man's life. They go for the most nefarious idea, even though there's text messages where Johnny Depp is like fantasizing about murdering her and all that stuff. They're not thinking like, oh, maybe it's like really difficult to get a restraining order and she just did what she had to do. And because people don't take those kind of death threats seriously, they clearly do not take those kinds of death threats seriously. If she felt like there was an issue, then people should have listened to her and gave her a restraining order no matter what. And then her bruise, there's no evidence that she faked it. There is absolutely zero evidence that she faked that bruise. Just these wild conspiracy theories. And you can see the difference between how men are taken on for their word. Just Johnny Depp's ridiculous, crazy stories about what happened. He's given the benefit of a doubt. and then a woman's word, it means nothing, even though he's the one that has the drugs and alcohol problem. Apparently his memory and his story of events it should mean more compared to what she's saying, just based on, I don't know, I don't even understand why they side with him over her, because she's so much more likable to me. Just by watching the trial, I liked Amber way more than him. Johnny Depp completely gave me the ick when I watched this trial. Like, I hated everything he was doing, all these bringing up these bad ideas about women, like the gold digger theory, saying that he's the reason why she got her role in Aquaman, all that stupid stuff, giving her pointless advice for her career, trying to transfer his experience as a man, mansplaining in that way. So many things bugged me that he did, I thought this was all supposed to be taken away. Like, after all these movements, you were supposed to, like, stop all this nonsense. But no, like, he just went backwards, so far back, saying that the stuff that he's saying apparently makes sense. Going back to this offensive idea that men are children, they can't defend themselves, they get tricked so easily, that you need to, like, watch out for women because they can mentally overpower men and all this stuff. And it's like, it's such nonsense. Like, Johnny Depp is not an idiot. It's so obvious that Johnny Depp is not an idiot, and he's being treated like he's so meek. He needs everyone to protect. He needed the whole world to protect him against this little woman, Amber Heard, who the only proven time that she hit him was that little bruise that he had on March 23rd, 2015. That's the only proven incident of her violence against him. That's the one time, and she said that she did it in defense of her sister. And there are these vague things in the tapes where he's accusing her of starting physical fights, and yet Johnny Depp is admitting over and over again in letters to her parents, apologizing for these things. He constantly says sorry. He's saying that he has the monster that needed to be locked away, and that's being disregarded, and people say that it means nothing. He was just placating her. I hate that whole thing of him saying that he was just placating her and telling her whatever she wanted to hear. That is so offensive and misogynistic, and I don't know why he was allowed to say all that stuff and get away with it. And then, like, in this whole trial, like, people saying, oh, it's not just men that defend him, women defend him. I don't care that stupid women defended this egotistical maniac in doing everything he did, and that they chose to give up their basic human rights of free speech. Amber's op-ed was completely factually correct, and he had no right to try to sue her over it. And that's something that everyone should have been able to recognize just from the very beginning. And now we've gone back to this whole thing with, like, male abusers. Like, everyone's had this Freudian slip. Even Camille Vasquez is saying that she didn't think that Amber would have to face her abuser. Everyone's calling him an abuser because you can't deny his verbal abuse and all that stuff. And yet you're trying to say that Amber's not allowed to say that she's a victim. It's so stupid. But ultimately, I am grateful that they exposed the fakeness of feminism. I never liked it, and I knew that on the inside people were like this, and I'm glad that it's all out in the open now, so I'm thankful for him for doing that.
I don't want anything to fucking do with you. You don't want fucking something to do with you. You think I want that fucking old ass fucking piece of shit? Fuck you. You're a fucking joke, man.